The Deadly Spawn is an 80s low-budget horror movie that feels a bit more like a 50s low-budget horror movie. The creature comes from outer space and attacks a small town. The adults are the first to get killed, leaving the kids to come up with a plan to save themselves and their town from certain destruction. Sounds like the plot to every science fiction horror movie ever. But there is something about The Deadly Spawn that I can't quite put my finger on that makes it a fun movie. So let's watch it and see what makes it so special. It all opens up with a meteor falling from the sky. Two guys who are camping go to check it out, and they find the place on fire, with what they think is a meteorite in the middle. One guy goes to get a camera while the other is killed, and then the other guy, well, he isn't so lucky either. One cool thing is that they wait to show you the creature until the best possible moment. For right now, all we get is a silhouette, but we can see that this thing has some big teeth. Now we see a farmhouse, and a couple wakes up to start their day. They notice that there's no hot water, so this guy goes down to check it out. He notices a smell, then the drain growls at him. But then something picks him up and kills him. Not long after, his wife comes down to see what's taking so long. For half a second, she thinks he's fine, with the old arm on the shoulder gag. But yeah, you guessed it. It's just the arm. The rest is being digested by the deadly spawn. And after getting her face ripped off, she joins her husband in its stomach. Now another couple wakes up. This time to some girl screaming, but it's just a kid watching horror movies. And judging by his room, he's one heck of a fan. This is Charles, our hero of the film, and the older couple are his aunt and uncle, who are in town visiting for a little while. Charles has a brother, Peter, who really seems to be into biology, and he's having some of his friends over later to help study for a test. And their parents? Well, you guessed it, they're the couple from the beginning. But they don't know that they're dead just yet, so they get ready for their day, like nothing happened. Aunt Millie goes to her mother's house to help her throw a party, and Uncle Herb is left alone with the kids. He's a psychologist and is interested in Charles and his horror movie obsession, so they have a little chat about it, which doesn't really amount to much except that Charles likes to scare people, and he has all kinds of props to use to scare them. Fake heads and even some flash powder. Charles gets ready for one of these pranks and heads downstairs. But what he finds is more scarier than anything he had in mind, because it's his mother's decapitated head. I have to say, he takes it pretty well, all things considered, and he doesn't lose his cool. Instead, he just watches the creature and figures out that it can't see, but it can hear. So he uses this to his advantage to get out of there and come up with a plan. Meanwhile, Pete's friends show up at his house to study, and Ellen found one of these things, but it's just a baby. Seeing how they're all studying biology, they take this as an opportunity to dissect the creature, to learn more about it. They discuss what its origins could be, and they think it might be a mutation of some sort of eel. Only Frankie guesses it correctly that it's from outer space, but the others just laugh at him and think he's been watching too many science fiction movies.
Look, Frankie's been filling his head with science fiction for years, but I'm surprised at you.
You always know everything. Why couldn't something come from outer space anyway?
Because it's impossible, that's why.
Now over to their aunt, who's been helping her mother throw a party. And what a party it's gonna be. They're preparing all the food when one of the spawns gets into the blender, and all the old ladies unknowingly eat it. Then all hell breaks loose as the eels attack everyone. Luckily, it's just the little ones, so everyone is able to escape. But it's always fun to see a grandma's lunch party ruined. Back at the house, the kids go to show their uncle their find. But, well, it found him first. He's dead. They take off but run right into the mother spawn and escape upstairs, all while Charles distracts it with a radio. Smart kid. Just then, another one of Pete's friends show up, Kathy, and she really has no idea what she's getting into. They manage to get her inside, but at the expense of Ellen, who is decapitated and thrown out the window. Fun fact, Ellen was originally going to make it to the end, but the actress, Jean Taffler, got another job, so they killed her off so she could go to that instead. Ellen's death is the straw that broke the camel's back for Pete. They were trying to build a romance between them, but there's also losing your parents and seeing your uncle being eaten alive that, yeah, would probably ruin your day. So anyway, he doesn't seem to care anymore and just opens the door, letting the creature in. His friends try to stop him, but it doesn't really matter anyway. This thing was gonna get in, through an open door or not. Anyway, as all the older kids scream and freak out, Charles has a plan. He stuffs some of that flash powder into a head and puts it on the end of a ski pole and gets the monster to eat it. Now, he just needs to plug it in. But the cord is too short. He only needs a few more inches. So he hits the ground to get the monster to move closer. And it works. When he plugs it into the wall, the mother spawn blows up into a million pieces. Later that day, half the town is at the farmhouse killing all the remaining eels. The aunt comes home to see her nephews in shock, but alive. Can't say the same about her husband, though. That night, they're wrapping things up, and they think they got all of the eels, bragging about how they took down a 3-footer and even an 8-footer. But then, the earth starts shaking, and the hill comes alive, as there's one last mega spawn left that could easily eat the house. And that was the deadly spawn. Like I said, there's just something about it that I like. Maybe it's the 50s B-movie monster with the 80s music. Maybe it's what they were able to do with such a low budget. I don't know, but I would totally recommend this movie for any creature feature lover. It's not perfect though. The acting is just a little off at times. I'm not so sure about Charles. Maybe he was supposed to be a little wooden, like a psychopath, and that's why his uncle wanted to talk to him in the beginning. I mean, he hardly reacted when he saw his mom's head inside a monster. Maybe he's been desensitized by all the horror movies he's watched, but I call BS on that because I watch a ton of horror movies, and seeing my mom's head would at least make me scream and poop my pants. The plot is also pretty thin, but it doesn't need to be anything deep. A meteor crashes to Earth and aliens attack the closest thing, a family in a farmhouse. Doesn't need to be anything deeper than that. For a budget of $25,000, I'm impressed, especially with the mother spawn. It's always so slimy and wet. It's got that perfect blend of cheesy yet horrifying. And I don't usually like those gimmicky twist endings that open it up for a sequel, but here it was pretty cool. And speaking of a sequel, there's a sort of pseudo-sequel that they made in the 90s called Metamorphosis: The Alien Factor. But early on it was turned into its own film. I haven't watched it yet, so let's give that one a try next. As for the deadly spawn, I give it 3 fake heads on a ski pole out of 4.
Are you ever afraid that you might run into one in real life? Oh, I don't mean afraid, but I mean, did you ever think you might see one, like you might see an alligator or a bear?
No. Maybe Bigfoot or something.